Hi, good morning. Welcome to the video. I'm Melissa, I write books. It is the 26th of November. I've been watching these TikToks this morning. Okay, please tell me someone else has been seeing these. It's the in mafia romances, it's like a POV of a side character in a mafia romance. I need to just give you an example. POV, you accidentally bumped into the main character, or bumped into your name, which is Y-N, which is like in a mafia romance fan fiction is like you know? It's really hard to explain, but it's like all these POVs of because in mafia romances, why am I explaining the joke? You know what I mean. My favorite one so far is you coughed you cleared your throat, which reminded your name of, and it sends them into PTSD, and now the mafia boss is looking at you, charges at you to kill you because you accidentally coughed in front of the kid. And as someone who has read many mafia romances where it's like, nobody's leaving this building until somebody tells me who, I am cracking up. That's what I've been doing this morning. I need to go to work, I fear. It's also my birthday today. I'm 25. It's not my birthday the day you're watching this, but anyway, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. But I feel like I want to do something over my lunch or this afternoon that's fun, and it's maybe I'll just go shopping, but not shopping buying a million things. I actually do need to just get some groceries from Target, so maybe I'll just make a little day out of it. Is this 25? Going to Target is my birthday fun? I mean, I could just leisurely browse, you know? I do just need more of those granola bites and then some other things. Also, I will be writing today. Oh my gosh, I haven't even talked to you since. Okay, so last night, I maybe talked about this in a voiceover because I never finished the video from yesterday because I was on a call with my friend Rachel, and hey Rachel, and I was writing and I was trying to figure out do I need to add this other date scene? It's very complicated, and I can't actually get into the nitty-gritty with you at this point because we're now well into Act 2, and I don't want to actually spoil everything that happens in the book, unfortunately. But I was going to finish the date in a certain way, and then I was explaining a different problem, and then Rachel was like, wait, wouldn't they just call the police? And I was like, not them, but somebody else in the situation. And I hadn't thought about it because in the other version of how this had happened, it made sense that the person was gone by the time the police were called. But in this version, they would have stayed after. So then I was like, oh. And then I was explaining something else, and she was like, would a cop really do that? Even if she was off duty? And then I was like, I mean, so essentially I was dealing with the ramifications of two scenes that had worked in different contexts that I needed to think about in a new way. But I think I did come up with a better solution. But it does mean pretty much deleting everything I did yesterday, basically. But I think it's gonna be fine. I think I have a better solution. I need to now think through this solution and make sure that there's no other ramifications to this one. And I need to figure out how exactly I'm gonna structure it, because there's this section that I had pulled in from another chapter that I'm kind of thinking could return to the chapter it was in, but it could also stay where it is. And that's on the agenda for today. Is I did not finish this section last night because it's not that a hole was blown into it, but I just took a step back and looked at wait a minute. And then I had a new idea for how to fix it, but then it will require rewriting. So then I had to really go back and forth of is it worth it to rewrite? Is this different version actually better, or is it just a new idea? You know? So I need to really think about. So then the day kind of got away from me after that. That was at 6, and then Dancing with the Stars was 3 hours last night. And for what? Why was it possibly 3 hours? Anyway, so now today I'm going to write this new scene. Then I will decide if it, based on how long it is, I will decide if I want to keep the section that I added in that would go before it, or if I don't want to do that and return that to its original place. It's just so much problem solving, and I want to get it right, you know? Ah, I don't know if I should do that. Oh, I just got an idea and I don't, it would change a lot of things. I need to write this down. I need to figure this out. Why do I keep coming up with ideas? This is so terrible. Okay. This book is never gonna be done. How am I gonna do this in a month, you guys? There's no one telling me I need to do it in a month, but like, okay, I need to go to work and think about everything I've done, you know? Hi, okay, updates. This morning, I like to be nostalgic and reflective on my birthday, but like, I don't know. I was watching a vlog from 2 years ago. It was my own vlog, personally. And I feel like I even might link it below because it was very reminiscent of this. It was the vlog where I was copy editing. I was doing like final copy edits, line edits. I sort of combined them for that book of the book like that I'm still querying, but I worked on before this one. And I was watching it and I was like getting deja vu because in the vlog, I realized part of the way through copy editing that I can cut a whole subplot from Act 1 or Act 2, Part 1. It was like probably right at the same percentage point as the stuff I'm changing now. And I'm like, is this a pattern for me that I just like get to a certain point and like within the plots that I make, I just end up cutting a giant section of Act 2 or reworking it? I don't know. I had not put together that I have ever done something like this before, like made this late stage of edits. Because for that book's life cycle, this is the same stage that I was at there where I was doing like the word read aloud pass, and I had a moment where I was like, I feel like the beginning is slogging and it's 90 pages in and nothing's really happened. And so I cut this whole thing about her having a second job or whatever. This is in the last book. And I was like, wow, so I have done this before. Like, it's not feeling familiar, I would say, but it is a pattern for me now. And so now in like future books, I'm definitely gonna be looking at Act 2, Part 1 more specifically as I go to make sure that everything's lined up, you know? Also, I wrote down notes because I had a thought. Oh, this is what it was. I feel like I have been struggling with this new piece. I feel like there's 4 chapters in this new piece technically, really now it's 3 again, but on Sunday I had plotted them out and I had plotted as far as the first 2 chapters. I was like, this is exactly what's gonna happen. And then the scene will just flow from there. And that's where I made a mistake. Is when I was like, okay, here's a bunch of things that are gonna happen in the date. Here's the setup for the first scene. Here's the setup for the second scene. The third scene, they're just gonna keep on flirting and having a good time. And I feel like the first 2 chapters came out really smoothly. I read them yesterday and like they do still need a lot of editing and tweaking, but like I feel like what came out originally was so clear and so clean and so like poised. That's the word that came to mind. I don't know if it's really poised, and I feel like this 3rd and 4th chapter I've been struggling a lot more with, which is in the long run good because had I just like written them and gotten it right away, then I wouldn't have realized like I'm actually changing what I'm doing with those chapters. Which is maybe part of the reason why they weren't going as well was because there was something off. It's hard with writing because I don't feel like the way I was writing it originally in this new version was wrong necessarily because there's not really a right and a wrong. It's just whatever I think fits the story the best. And so I've been really fighting with that mindset because I'm like, I want to do the right thing for the book. And I'm like, well, there's lots of different right ways that this book could go. Like I could have edited what I had of the original book and edited those scenes to be just like better fleshed out scenes and it would have been right, you know? And replacing it with this different thing isn't changing major things in the plot. It's just changing like how the fun and games sort of go, but it leaves them ultimately in the same place. And so I think when I approached these later chapters, I was getting from the mindset of like, I'm just gonna write this new scene. I'm not gonna think about how it fits into the rest of the book. And I think I kind of lost that like fresh mentality where it was like, I can do like this, there's no pressure on this scene right now. And I feel like I started putting a lot of pressure because I was pulling in other sections of different chapters into these scenes to try to make them work. And now I think I'm gonna end up pulling one of them out again. And now I'm changing it. So instead of it being one chapter in Cal's, one chapter in Danny's, one chapter in Cal's, one chapter in Danny's, it's gonna go, legally it's the same, actually, but what was going to happen in that last Danny chapter is now gonna happen in the Cal chapter, and so Danny's next chapter is actually gonna be the next chapter in the actual manuscript. So really it's only adding 3 new chapters rather than 4. And you know how I was like, oh, I'm gonna cut these 2 chapters after it? Actually, I'm not. Oops. But I am editing them very severely to like match up with this new section, right? So I just need to, like today, when I go into the document, I'm gonna write like this new scene. I'm gonna plot it out first like I did on Sunday because that really worked really well, is plot out like how exactly is their conversation gonna flow? Because also now their conversation has like, Cal has a goal for this conversation. That's not even related to the conversation. But I think if I plot it out a little bit better, that'll be good. That will be good. I was telling Brielle about this and she did ask me a question. So I'm gonna actually just call her up and see if I can figure out this piece, you know? Yeah, that is my current update, is that I'm going to spend the afternoon. Well, first I'm gonna brainstorm this story situation and see if it's fine. And then I'm going to write this scene really fresh, outline it, spend the afternoon writing it. And then I can plug it in and start doing more of an in-depth edit to combine it with everything else. And then we'll get back on track, you know? Okay. Let's do it. Hi, okay, I got these mics, so for my birthday today, so I'm prepare for an audio quality upgrade. We do have some updates though, I fear. So this afternoon, I get on a call with Brielle thinking, oh, I'm just gonna do a quick, like, I've been having some thoughts about this scene and I'm like, there's a few things I wanna talk through with the scene that like, I just wanna make sure makes sense and like, there's all this stuff. And we start talking about how I'm gonna change the scene to be a different type of robbery. And then I don't even know how we possibly got onto the train of thought that we got onto. Also, I bought this notebook today and we've gotten used. It started with like, what is her inner thought process? Because I think I was asking the question of like, what is Danny thinking about Cal in this scene? And that really spiraled things into a muck, I fear. I don't even know how to explain this, but we ended up talking for 2 hours. Essentially, I made a few changes in terms of like, what does Cal know about her and what does she know about him that are not like, you wouldn't think that it's a major, major change, but I fear it's
Anyway, so then with that change, I was like, you know what I need to do is I need to, with all these changes I'm making, just talk through the interiority of the whole book, I guess. So we talked through like, okay, during this date, what is Danny thinking actively and what is Cal thinking actively? And then we went scene by scene. And as we went scene by scene, things just like kept coming up. And there was nothing huge and major. I don't know, Braille might categorize some of them as huge and major, but none of them were like earth-shattering, change the whole scene. Well, one of them was. But it was a lot of like, wait a minute, if he's doing that, but he knows this, wouldn't he do something a little bit different? Wouldn't their conversation be about this? And Brielle was just like interrogating me, which is good. You need a friend like this at this stage. I wish I would have, I don't know. I say I wish I would have done this earlier, but like, I wouldn't have been at the place to ask these questions because this solution wouldn't have existed, you know? Anyway, so we went through like the dates, and then after I got out of the new scenes, it was like, okay, well, let's think about the scenes that come after this of like, does the interiority match? And it just ended up being like a lot of, the further we got, it was like, okay, this new scene, obviously everything is new. But then in the chapters after it, it's like, okay, well, we have to adjust what she's thinking about, like her interiority. And for some of it that like with a thing that we changed, or I changed what they could talk about in the scene. So like the conversation that they're having during the scene is different. And like, it was just a lot of like logistical, little tiny, teeny, tiny plot hole things that kept coming up of like, because we changed this one thing, wouldn't he now know this? Wouldn't she now know this? Wouldn't he not know this anymore? Wouldn't she think about that? Like, it was like, the big question was, does Cal know that she's a cop or not? But it's not even does he know, it's does she think that he knows? So we're talking through like, okay, in this scene, does she think that he knows that she's a cop? And then from his side, it's like, does he think that she knows that he thinks she's like, it was getting so, like my brain was melting, and we did this for like 2 hours, and so we went through, like, I got to the midpoint. I was like, we need to keep talking this through because I think this change is going to like ricochet into the rest of the book. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. This scene in Act 2, Part 2 could go earlier to make this other reveal. Because this other so there was kind of two sections. Because the first section was, okay, from this date to the midpoint, like, here's what people are thinking about. And I knew that there would be changes there because I was adding this whole new scene. But then we also changed, like, what does Danny know about him knowing about? I know it's confusing. No one is more confused than me. Anyway, so I knew that there would be changes there, but then when we got to the midpoint, I was thinking, okay, this thing that we changed can lead to this like better lead up to the midpoint where the midpoint would be the same, and she technically learns the same information, but she learns it a little bit earlier so that like the lead up to the midpoint is a lot more like, oh my gosh, I found out this thing. I found out this other thing. I'm feeling really this way. And then, oh my gosh, this other thing's happening. And it just provides like a bigger like lead up right into the midpoint. And that almost feels like a Dark Night of the Soul right before the midpoint. Anyway, but then changing that, which I do think all these decisions like feel really right. And was kind of what was scary about making them, was like, this is going to be a lot of work, but it feels like it really clarifies. It'll be so much clearer for the reader, like what people are thinking about, and their decisions will make so much more sense based on what they're thinking about. Anyway, so then we were talking about this is still Act 2, Part 1, I guess. And just writing out like, what is she thinking about what during this scene, right? And then we get to the midpoint, and since I moved some of the stuff that happened like right after the midpoint to be right before the midpoint, then like then I realized that there was actually a bigger ripple effect to something that I had changed early on. Oh, you guys know about this one. So remember how Cal has this piece of like Danny learns this piece of information about Cal, and she brings it to her team now, but in the earlier draft she didn't bring it to her team, and so they didn't know about this piece of information at all. But now, because she brings it to the team, they know this piece of information, which kind of comes into play right after the midpoint. So then we just had to brainstorm of like, how can she still do what she does with them knowing the information that they now know? And I think we did figure it out, but it will require like a new scene or a rewrite of a scene that exists just to kind of like make everything line up with the changes. And then I just kind of continued to map out, okay, with these small changes, like here's just to make sure we know the thought process in the rest of the midpoint. And I really think all of these changes are good and they all felt really right. Like it felt like this change that I had made, it wasn't even that huge of a, like it felt like it was something where there was no wrong answer. It was either going to have him rob the till or rob something off of her person. And changing it to robbing something off of her person like spurred all of these questions that kind of led us here. And I think it's good that this dam was sort of broken because I feel like it feels like a bigger edit. Like after we were on the phone for like 2 hours talking about it, I did get pretty overwhelmed because it's just like, it's a lot of work. Like every single chapter is going to have interiority shifts, but none of this, I mean, there's one chapter that's like going to get moved and another one that's going to be kind of fully rewritten in Act 2, Part 2. But a lot of it's like the scene is the same, but the conversation they're having is different, which I guess is kind of a rewrite. And the interiority, like some of it might stay, but some of it needs to go. And so it's just kind of an overwhelming thing. And Brielle suggested something that I think I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new document and I'm going to copy paste where I'm up to right now. And then I'm going to, as each chapter comes up, I'm going to look at, okay, what is the interiority for this chapter? Like what is Dani thinking about and believing and what is her theory during this chapter? And then I'm going to go through and copy over everything that matches that. So I'm not even like looking at pieces of interiority or dialogue that don't match with what's going on. And then once I pull all of that over, because I'm also still doing all the notes that Christina had, because most of the notes still do apply. It's like so impossible to explain this edit, I fear. The story still feels the same. It actually feels more like itself. And then also there's all of these like line level edits from Christina. And also there are some plot level edits from Christina that like are separate from this. And so I'll do all of those as well, but then I'll kind of like write through the chapter and make sure that all the interiority lines up with what they need to be believing. So I've written out, that's the clip you saw before. This was me typing out like, here's the scene, here's what Dani is thinking and suspecting and believes, and any other like there's a few spots in here where it's like, oh, here's a question that might come up and here's how we address it. Like one of them, wouldn't he know about her existence? And then like the answer to that question so that I can remember to include it in interiority. So it's like interiority, but also anything I need to include in the interiority that's not already there, that I can't just like make up on the fly. Like I need to include it for the scene to make sense. It's crazy though, because I feel like I literally have already done this. Like if you were following me the summer of 2024, I literally had a giant whiteboard in my room, in my office, of here's every single plot point of the book and here's people's motivation for every single point. But what I didn't do was their interiority, like what they're thinking about that scene. And this is something I'm implementing into my revisions in the future, is like, not only do I want to know every single person's motivation for all of their actions, I want to know what they're thinking about. Because the thing that's like becoming a little bit inconsistent as I make these edits is like what Dani's theory is about what Cal knows. Which I don't think every book is going to have this, because most, like, there's the fake dating element, but also the fake dating and not knowing that the other person is also fake dating. Like that's how I've gotten myself into this situation, is it's just a very complicated, like they both have theories and they both have goals, but they're also both falling for each other. So it's just very complicated. And then when you pull one thread, it all just sort of goes, you know. But I am feeling like I'm gonna feel good about this book when it's done. And right now I'm just feeling a little tiny bit overwhelmed, because it does feel like it is a majorly more significant edit than it was. But I'm very grateful for Brielle for sticking it out. I was like, this is my birthday party, is talking through all of the plot inconsistencies in my book for 3 hours. And it did take me a moment to I needed to do a puzzle for a while and decompress, because I was like, I feel like my whole book's falling apart. But then I went back and I wrote it all out and I'm like, actually, this feels very similar to what exists right now. It's just clarifying it. It's just clarifying for me and for the reader what everybody thinks about. And that doesn't mean that what they're thinking is simple, because often it'll be like Cal's on a date with Danny and he's thinking, oh, I like this girl, but he's also thinking, oh, I need to get this information from him. And he's also thinking, does she think that I'm onto him? And I also need to know from Danny's point of view, what is she thinking about him thinking about? And so it's just like really complicated, but that complexity is the word I'm looking for. That complexity does actually get easier after the midpoint because of reasons that I can't tell you. So there you go. That's how it's going. I hope this new microphone worked and was on. I don't know. But I think I'm going to go to the pool. I'm going to call the Y and see how late they're open tonight because it's the night before Thanksgiving. But I depending on how I feel when I get back from the pool, I do just feel like I still want to write that scene that I said I was going to write today, because I still need to keep moving forward. I need to not be afraid to get started on these edits, and I just need to not be afraid, you know? And I think the way to do that is to start writing the scene, this new scene, because I still need to, it's still the same scene I was working on that I didn't even start. Because I was like, oh, let me just brainstorm a little bit about what her and this is that, and then we got here. So I'm gonna leave you for now. I might come back later, but this might be the end of the video. You'll find out. Okay, I've fixed the sound so it should be a little better and shouldn't be peaking. With mics like these, if you feel like you're like, why do I sound so loud? Like, why does it sound scratchy? You need to, there should be a dial and you can change it so that it's like negative. It should be -6. They come on like +6, which is like, no one should be at +6. Is all I have to say. It's crazy. And you should be able to see the bar. It looks like I might even be peaking now, but we'll see. So I got back from the pool. It's 9:45. I kind of feel like I maybe want to write TBD, because I don't really know. I was thinking about the scenes, the new scene, a lot in the pool, and I feel like I do have a good grasp of it. I think something that needs to be key for me is to like fix my attitude when I'm going into the book. Like, I feel like I'm coming into the book right now with like an attitude of fear, and I need to come in with an attitude of like, I know how to do this. I know this story. I know these people. I can do this, and like really believe it, you know? I don't know if now is really the time though to write it. Like, maybe I should just go to bed, you know? I'm just gonna write down my notes that I took out of the pool.
In the cold kitchen light, we both look for a sign